I'm going to go ahead and call our special meeting of the Board of Directors to order. We'll start with public comments this morning. Mr. Mosier, you have indicated item number 1, sir?
Yes, thank you. The first thing I wanted to say is if you really wanted to engage public input and comment on the district investment policy, it would be helpful in the future if you provided some guidance as to where the public could find the current district policy. It is true it's on the district's website, but you have to know to look for resolutions or board agendas. It's not in any obvious place. Second comment, since the topic today is finances, I wanted to draw the board and the district staff's attention to the Newport Beach Finance Committee meeting on August 15th. There are two items that are relevant here. One is item 5B, as in boy, where they were discussing their own annual review of their investment policy and struggling with this idea of investing in international securities, as whether it's appropriate or not. And I may have a comment on that later, but I'll hold that till I hear what your discussion is. The other comment I wanted to make, and I realize that a special meeting is supposed to restrict comments to just what is on the agenda. There's a slightly off topic that I'll probably be missing the general public off-agenda opportunity on Thursday. So I wanted to call your attention to their item 5D, as in dog, at their August 13th Finance Committee meeting, where the city of Newport Beach is struggling with their own wastewater rate survey that they went through, this district went through 2 years ago. Newport Beach, as you may know, the city municipal operations department oversees a sewer system almost identical in size to this district. Same number of miles, same number of pump stations. City staff there is going to have to bring to the city council the bad news. The rates will have to be increased by about 50%. Cover their future infrastructure, maintenance and replacement costs. And one of the options I was surprised to see that staff is presenting is that sewer system could be suggested to be annexed by another district, either this one or the Irvine Ranch Water District. And although that's not strictly a financial topic, if that was to happen, it would certainly affect the finances of this district, and I think it's something that we should be aware of. I think the chance of the city council there going with that proposal, which is 1 out of 4 of the proposals, is very small, but I think you should know that the staff there is considering that as an option. Apparently they look here and they see that the rate structure seems to be more efficient than they're able to achieve themselves.
Thank you for your comments. Well, just let me know if we get into the next part if you do have a comment.
Could I ask Mr. Mosher a question? On that report, did they specify Costa Mesa Sanitary as one of the options?
The option is to consider being annexed by a special district devoted to wastewater operations. Okay. So the only 2 viable options were this one and the Irvine Ranch Water District.
I believe they have been talking with Irvine Ranch Water District because their city council gave their staff direction to look at contracting out, outsourcing wastewater, getting out of the wastewater business and looking at more contracting that out.
Will LEFCO have to be involved in something like this?
Oh, yeah. And the district has to be contiguous with Newport.
Because at the last Waco meeting, Irvine Ranch is also after the Tustin area, and along with the other one in North Orange County.
East
Orange County.
Right. So
they're interested in everybody, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mosher.
Have you had any dialogue, Scott, with the city of Newport?
Just I know that they were putting together like a white paper on the feasibility of contracting that out, and I don't think it's been published yet, but I know they were working on it. I know that IRW's been pressing really hard to provide that service to them.
I think I agree with Mr. Mosier. I think that if they have 4 options, I'd probably be the low man on the totem pole to contract fighting them now.
I have a question, but
especially in Newport right now.
In Newport, the citizens don't pay for the wastewater; it's the city pays for it. Is that correct? Like in our case, we have a rate structure that they could.
No.
Is that correct?
I don't think it's a discussion topic today, but just to clarify my comment, the it would be a complicated merger because the rate structure is quite
Yeah,
different.
it is.
It is charged based on the water consumption because they supply the water.
They're charging the water bill?
Okay, that's what I mean.
Which
Which
is-
wouldn't be the same as ours. Okay,
It
thank you.
seems like if they were gonna go with IRWD, they would get rid of their water and sewer all in one fell swoop and get out of that business period.
All right. Item 2, then investment policy. Mark, if you're ready for our primer?
Sure, thank you. A few months back, Director Perry had made some comments about wanting to get maybe an update or some discussion regarding investments outside of our normal quarterly, just a couple minute discussion that we have at a board meeting. So hence the special meeting today. So what I wanted to do is to walk through a variety of topics today, all related to investments. What our allowable investments are, some investment terminology as we go through and we talk about things. So, and when I make the quarterly presentations, when you hear some of these terms, we'll have some definitions related to what they are, what the objectives of our investments are, what our philosophy has been, how we go about placing investments, what the current environment is out there, especially in light of the last few days, and what that might mean from an impact to the district. So the next several slides, we're just going to go through all of the various types of investments that we do invest in and those that we do not invest in currently, so that you can have a little bit more familiarity with them. First one is LAIF. LAIF is the Local Agency Investment Fund. It's run by the State Controller's Office, and all agencies can, within the state, cities, special districts, can participate in LAIF. And it's actually just not just an individual city. It's any entity that's related to the city. So if a city has a public financing authority associated with it, that's two entities. Both of them can invest in LAIF. And each of those entities that can invest, they're capped at $50 million being able to be invested at LAIF. Right now, our policy has us limited to $40 million. Our whole entire portfolio is only 20, so we would never even be there. LAIF is highly liquid, meaning that I can, if I need money, we use LAIF as a very short term, almost like a sweep account for us. If I need money on a given day, as long as I call LAIF before 10 a.m., the money can be in our account that same day, and we can use those funds that same day.
Sorry to interrupt, Mark, but that's pretty common with most agencies to use LAIF kind of that way, isn't it?
Absolutely. And typically the smaller agencies and maybe those agencies that are a little bit maybe less sophisticated will only use LAIF.
Yeah.
Their entire portfolio will be just in LAIF. It's just because it's easy. You can put it there. You can not think about it. And the current rate, as you see right now, is 0.33% on really what could constitute overnight funds. The next category in our investment policy are U.S. Treasuries. These consist of three types of securities with under U.S. Treasuries: bills, notes, and bonds. Bills are treasuries that are up to 1 year in duration. Notes are up to 5 years in duration, and bonds are beyond that period of time. These are the only securities that are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. They do have the lowest risk associated with any of the investments, and also then, because they have the lowest risk, they're going to have the lowest yield. Your policy allows for unlimited investments in LAIF, and currently we don't have any of our investments, unlimited investments in U.S. Treasuries, and currently we don't have anything invested in Treasuries. Those rates down below that I've shown you, those are what the current rates are for bills, notes, and bonds. Bills are running about 0.33%, notes about 0.9%, and bonds, the very long term, at about 1.39%. Anything more than 5 years. Next type of security in our policy are federal agency securities, and these are agencies of the federal government or agencies that are that could be public companies that are associated with the federal government. The common ones that we have invested in are the Federal Farm Credit Bank, Federal Home Loan Bank, Federal National Mortgage Association, or Fannie Mae, and the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, or Freddie Mac. Now, these are implicitly guaranteed by the government. The theory here being that if one of these agencies would default, there's a perception out there that the government would step in, much like when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac several years ago, the government kind of stepped in to help ensure that they weren't going to fail. So there's some implied guarantees that the government would do that if some of these other agencies would have problems. Typically, you'll see higher rates than U.S. Treasuries, and there's going to be slightly more risk. But again, because of that quasi-guarantee, that they're still pretty low interest rates. Again, our policy does not limit the amount of investments we can have in federal agency securities. And down below, again, you can see what rates are, recent rates for a 1, 3, and 5-year federal agency security.
Do we have any in the current any of the current rates apply to us that
we do? We have a security that we had purchased that is going to settle the end of this week. It's a Federal Home Loan Bank, and we bought it. It's a 5-year security, and we bought it at 2%. Next couple of areas for investments are certificates of deposit. Currently, we do not have any investments in certificates of deposit. These investments are secured, FDIC insured up to $250,000. They can't be traded. It's much like, you go to the bank, it's a term deposit. The bank's going to pay you interest for a specified period of time, and then at maturity you'll get your principal back. Right now, our portfolio limits us to 25%. Our policy limits us to 25% of the portfolio in CDs, and pulled up Bank of America, who we bank with, just to see what their CD rates are of 1, 3, and 5 year. Not very good.
I know State Farm Bank is probably just, I think we're a little higher than that, but that's where they're at right now, CD. How do we gauge which bank we're going to use to do the CDs?
Great question. About 10 slides, we'll get into that.
Oh, thank you. Right.
And next category is negotiable certificates of deposit. These are also FDIC insured up to $250,000. The difference between certificates of deposit and negotiable certificates of deposit are that the negotiable CDs you can trade. You can actually trade those. CDs you can't, but negotiable CDs are on a secondary market, and you can trade those. We do invest in those. Currently, our maximum is 25% of the portfolio can be in negotiable CDs, limited to no more than 10% of our portfolio in any single issuer. In practicality, though, 10% is going to be about $2 million. In practicality, we stay under that FDIC insurance amount because we're really relying on the credit worthiness of the bank. And so if the bank were to fail, as long as our investment is below that $250,000, we would be covered by insurance. Anything above that, we would lose out on it, potentially lose out on it. You can see the current rates for 1, 3, and 5 year negotiable certificates of deposit. They're substantially higher than a regular traditional CD.
Can residents use that?
Any of these things you can invest in.
I think
Except for late.
Yeah, except for late.
The negotiable ones, we call them same as a variable CD. I think that's what in our industry we call them variables, because you can trade them, and they do vary in their interest rates. So.
But if we invested in them, we would have a set rate. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're buying for a set period of time with a fixed interest rate, and we'll guarantee that interest rate throughout that period. Next investment that's in our portfolio in our policy, is a banker's acceptance, a BA. These are securities that are generally sold at they're sold at a discount with a promise to pay a specified amount in the future. So they're very much like a post-dated check. And they're used in a lot of cases with companies that are involved in import-export business. So, for example, a company is buying goods from China, let's say. And so those goods, we buy those goods are going to be shipped across to the United States. But the company that is selling those goods, they're going to want their money right now. They don't want to wait for delivery. So what happens is the purchaser's bank will end up issuing this check, this post-dated check, if you will, to the seller of the goods. They'll get that, and it's going to be a promise that, instead of discount, it's going to be a promise that on delivery of those goods, once it makes it to its final destination, the receiver of that certificate is going to be able to turn it in and get the full price of the product. The seller, though, wants their funds right now. So what they do is they will take all these bankers' acceptances that they get, and they'll trade them on the secondary market, and they'll package them up and they'll sell them, and then we can invest in those. So it's a secondary investment, again, used generally in import-export business. The term is very short. They're usually from only 30 to 180 days in duration. The government code allows us to invest 40% of the portfolio with no more than 30% in any single issuer. We have lowered those max in your policy to 25% maximum with 15% in any single issuer. Again, currently we don't have any investments in bankers' acceptances, and you can see what the rates are for a 30-day VA and 180-day VA. They run from 0.15 to 0.38%.
Do you think our maximum should be even lower, or do we never invest in these?
We haven't in a really long time. I want to say that when the district was part of the city, we invested in VAs. We invested in a lot of these other things at that point in time. But post separation, no, we haven't invested in them.
Good. Yeah, I don't think they're that great.
Well, I think
There's other instruments that
Yeah,
are-
there's better
instruments.
Yeah.
Is the amount that you do in the acceptance based on the value of the goods being imported or exported?
Yeah, between the buyer and seller, that's correct. The buyer and the seller, somebody's going to buy goods for $1 million. Whatever the discount rate, and these discount rates are very similar to these current rates here, it will get discounted in some fashion. So the purchaser's bank may issue a check for $998,000 to the seller, dated 6 months in the future.
Yeah.
They'll hold that check. They know that the purchaser paid $998,000 for that. The seller's going to get $1 million in the future. But when the seller receives that, they'll take it. It will be traded at that point in time, and that's how we end up in.
Are those generally insured?
They're considered safe based upon the reputation of the bank, because the bank's going to be the underlying security, and usually only reputable banks are going to be trading in bankers' acceptances. You're not going to see the really small banks doing this. It's going to be the big company, the very large banks that will be doing this.
My last little comment on this, you mentioned we hadn't done this since we split from the city. Our investment policy when we were with the city was tied to what was going on in the county of Orange. I mean, we were using Mr. Citron's formulas back then too, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why we don't, or part of the reason we don't do much of this anymore.
Yeah, very common. This is a very common investment that cities do invest in.
Really?
Very common.
You know, all of this is just to add on to that, just because I used to do the investments here too.
Yeah.
It's things come and go, in popularity and in value. So it's kind of just something in your repertoire of options. Obviously we could just put everything in Lathe and just leave it and walk away. That's pretty simple, and that's the same thing as the county never going down. Well, you're assuming the state would never go down. But sometimes these things become really popular, and you're going to get a good rate, and it's a very highly rated instrument, and it's worth doing. And other times it's you can see it's not worth even thinking about. So it's just a good little.
But I think, fortunately, they are short term. If you're not looking at this as ensuring the future of the district. We're taking
Yeah.
a short-term.
I wanted to
risk
say, I
in
think I might have bought some back when I did the investing for, I want to say it was like bicycles or something like that that were coming from China, you know, and the bank was, you know, very reputable. I don't know why that sticks in my head, but it was a very good investment. It was very short term and it was a good deal. And, you know, if the ship goes down, then the whole, you know, ship is insured for all the products and stuff. So, you know, it's based on the bank. It was highly rated. You kind of
Good
look
old
at it like
Lloyd's
that.
of London.
Can I ask a question? Okay. Looking at that 0.38%, is that for 6 months, or for 6 months?
Correct.
That'd be
So
better.
so if it was, you would get that full 3.8 for 6 months, not based on the year.
Correct. And these are sold at a discount, which means that, so that 0.38%, I would, if I were going to invest in that DA, it would be $999,600 I would pay, and then 6 months they're going to give me $1 million back, is the way that works.
So sometimes it may be worthwhile, based on the percentage.
Hasn't in a while, but.
Isn't it a while?
Yeah, based on the current
Well,
rate.
like,
always
you know,
there.
some things like commercial paper, which you talked about earlier, you know, usually at the beginning of the calendar year, commercial paper becomes a better investment. I'm not saying it's a good investment, but it can become better because a lot of businesses and stuff are closing out their year end and they're trying to beef up their balance sheets. And so you can have things that are based on timing or become valuable.
Does the school district in Fort Mesa do investments such as these?
You know, I honestly do not know what they invest in off the top of my head.
I think they're more in the late type.
I don't know.
They would
Paul
still
was
be-
pretty aggressive guy.
It
We
would still
had
be capped.
$80 million in the bankruptcy with
Yeah,
the
no.
county, so we were in the lead.
Well, that's the county, but their portfolio is, I want to say, like $170 million or something, so LAIF wouldn't be the entire
They're too
amount.
late.
They would have to do something else, but, you know, that was something
Well,
that
this
Paul
has
did
been,
really
what, 15
specifically,
years
and,
Never told anybody.
well, the finance director and him, and, you know, so it wasn't anything I had any,
Paul's not a talkative guy.
And we just talked a little bit about commercial paper. That's another option that's available in our policy. Again, we currently do not have any investments in commercial paper. But these are short-term unsecured promissory notes that are issued by corporations, and again, they're sold at discounts. The risk here is really based upon the quality of the corporation that you're investing in. They are unsecured. They're very short-term. They're 30 days to 270 days, so they are 9 months maximum in duration. The 270-day cap is really there because it gets them around the SEC requirement to have to register these securities. These are the companies can issue these on their own without going through any kind of SEC regulations, and that's why they're under the 270 days. Our code, both the government code and our policy allows us to invest 25% of our portfolio in commercial paper with no more than 10% in any single issuer. And so 90-day commercial paper right now is at about 0.26%. Again, we don't have anything invested in this. What this really does is this allows, they're like very short-term loans that companies will go get without having to go through any kind of bank financing with any kind of bond issuance to get working capital to pay for maybe receivable float or buy inventory with. Is how these things come about.
Mark, is there any significant difference in what each one of these instruments charge for a fee to subscribe to it?
There is, and the fees, and we'll talk a little bit later about that. But the fees are generally we pay fees to the broker, but the fees are all hidden. They're in the interest rate. So, for example, this commercial paper might be sold by the company at directly to the market at maybe 0.265%, let's say, and the brokers will offer it us at 0.26%. So that's how they get their fee. They'll make a tiny little bit of a spread on what they buy it at and what they sell it at.
So that's the seller's fee.
That's pretty true across the board as far as different types of instruments.
Yes. And the seller picks up that fee, not the buyer.
The buyer.
The buyer does? The buyer does. Oh, really?
Yeah, because we would be, if we could buy, we can't, because we're not authorized to trade securities. We don't have licenses to be able to do that. But if we did, if the district public agencies did, then they could buy directly from these companies, and they would get that 2.265% rate, a little bit higher rate. But because it's going to go through an intermediary, go through a broker, they're going to take a little bit of a haircut on that rate, and then offer back out a little bit.
Did they ever get both ends of it, from the buyer and the seller?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Next investment is medium-term corporate notes. These are really extended maturity commercial paper. Acts just like commercial paper. The only difference is now they got to go register with the SEC and a little bit more requirements put on place of the company. The max for the code is 30%. We've limited that to 20%, 10% in the single issuer. And there's a further requirement that in the government code that if we make an investment in medium-term corporate notes, the company that we're investing in has to be rated in one of the top three categories by Moody's or Standard & Poor's. Anything below that, we would be prohibited from investing in. I didn't have any rate information on this, but it's going to be at rates greater than what we saw in commercial paper. These could go out 30 years, by the way.
You wouldn't have to wait the full 30 years to get your
We're actually, government agencies can only go out a maximum of 5 years. So if we're buying medium-term notes, we're going to be buying either original issue notes that are 5-year maturity or less, or we'll be buying something on the second year or secondary market that only has a remaining maturity of 5 years or less. CalTrust, next investment that we are authorized to invest in. This is really a joint powers authority for agencies for the pooling and investing of funds. Much like LAIF, it's really an alternative to LAIF. Operates very similarly. It's been around now for a dozen years maybe now, not too terribly long. And because it's been around more, it's grown to about $2 billion in total assets. So it's becoming more and more popular by special districts and agencies as an alternative to LAIF. We, a number of years ago, had adopted the resolutions to participate in CalTrust. We have not yet made any investments into CalTrust. At the time that we adopted those resolutions, they were a little bit more restrictive, and I'll get into some of their pools and things in just a second, but they were a little bit more restrictive at the time as to how often you could get your money back or withdraw your funds. Whereas LAIF, we could get funds daily. CalTrust was a little bit more restricted. Now that they've grown, now that they're more mature, some of those restrictions have come off, and so now it's actually becoming a viable alternative, and we're going to be looking at placing some funds into CalTrust. Right now they have two pools that they offer. One is a short-term pool that has unlimited transactions per month. Similar to LAIF, we can call up and get funds the same day. Their current rate is 0.5%. And compared to LAIF is 0.33%. They have a medium-term pool that you can invest in as well. Under the medium-term pool, you can only make one transaction per month, or one withdrawal per month. Actually, one transaction, one deposit, one withdrawal. The current rate on the medium-term pool is 0.82%. Both of those might be viable options now for us. They really weren't when we were first joined and first adopted resolutions to do that. But now that they're more mature, they're becoming to be...
Was that created as an alternative to LAIF because of the bankruptcy, or pretty much?
That's about the time that it all, came into play.
What's the LAIF current rate right now?
0.33.
Yeah, but what are you doing to get that step up? You know, that's the difference between the county and LAIF, is people are going, well, I can put my money in LAIF, or I can put my money in the county, and I can get, you know, this much more. So the county was assuming significant risk.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they're assuming more risk than LAIF is. Now, part of that could be offset by the fact that they have two different pools, and so they're limiting their short-term pool and their long-term pool. So that, you know, if LAIF knew that, okay, this much of my investments are never going to be pulled, you know, that I won't have all these people calling me, because they're planning on, what if everyone calls me today and wants their money? They have to be able to do that. So that could be some of it, but they've got to be assuming more risk to get that.
Aren't they prevented from any leveraged investment? You know how that leverage thing was really a popular thing with the county, and that's what caused the...
I would have to look at their investment policy again to see. They, in my last look, the types of investments that they could invest in were follow the government code. And the government code does allow things that we aren't even in our policy. They allow repurchase agreements. They allow reverse repurchase agreements.
Oh, yeah.
They allow mortgage-backed securities. There's lots of things in the government code that we can do that are still much more riskier investments, and things like we saw in the Orange County bankruptcy still allow those types of investments to do. Some of these pools will do that. With $2 billion here, and with LAIF being at $7 or $8 billion, whatever they're at, they have a lot more funds that are available to be able to put a little bit of their stuff in those types of securities to be able to bump up rates.
I have a question. The current rate at 0.82, is that based on a year rate?
Yeah, these are all annual rates.
Yeah, okay, so you would get less if you took it out after a month.
It would be 0.82. You'd only earn it for that period of time.
Yeah, okay, so it's not 8.2 every investment. It's based on the whole year.
Correct.
Like Mark said, many suppositions for investment contracts.
Now, is that governed? I mean, does it have a security other than just the total amount of money in the like $2 billion? Is it backed by anybody?
No. This is a the board is a group of member agencies. They have I don't know how many people are on their board, but they're from those agencies that participate in the pool. You have two levels of participation. One, you can be just a participant, or you can be I think they call it a member. The members are the ones that are allowed to actually vote and do things on with CalTrust, and the participants are just passive investors in the pool. So somebody here could end up sitting on the board.
So we could have an insurance salesman on that.
No, you wouldn't.
Heaven forbid.
You wouldn't.
Would this just be something
A
you think
retired
about investing?
engineer would be better.
Yes, as an alternative
don't think so.
as an alternative to LAIF. LAIF has traditionally
Maybe
been
one, but not like.
again so easy to use from an overnight cash flow being available. When you authorized this investment, it didn't look like this at the time. Rates were less than in LAIF, and there were more restrictions in there. Even on the short-term pool, you were limited to only a few transactions per month. And so if we were going to take our very short-term money and tie it up, and giving up some of that liquidity in LAIF and not having a spread and interest to do that just didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, now with them being more unlimited in the number of transactions you can do, and the rate actually being just a little bit better than LAIF, it might make a little bit more sense. Would it be a lot of our portfolio? Probably not. But it may make more sense.
So we're limited to 20% max. Is that correct?
That's correct. So $4 million max that we'll put in there.
I remember bringing this down from CSBA and getting us to vote on it a long time ago.
Yeah, this was Director Schaefer. We wouldn't have been here had it not been for you bringing that stuff down.
Yay, Marlene.
I did something right.
That's it on the types of investments that are currently in your, well, I'm going to add one more, but the investments that are in your portfolio are both the things that we can invest in and the ones that we have not invested in. There is one more that didn't get in this slide deck, and it really alludes to what Mr. Mosier brought up, which are supernationals. We talked about those in June when you adopted your investment policy, and we discussed what they were. And at that time, you had authorized us to go ahead and add that to the investment policy. I mentioned that while it gives us a tool, we probably wouldn't be investing in those until we see what other government agencies are starting to do with supranationals before we place anything there, and that still holds true. We have no investments in supranationals, but they are not listed in this slide deck, but they are in your policy.
At our recently SDRMA, we looked at supranationals as part of our investment folks came and spoke to us, and they seemed pretty positive about it. I mean, almost they were anxious. I mean, it seemed like something they really wanted us to look at from an SDRMA investment policy. And I think we did some, but is it popular? I mean, are agencies starting to put more in the supranational?
They're all starting to talk about it. It just became authorized at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And so, and the government code rarely changes on the types of investments that you can do. Maybe they might make a tweak here or there on limitations, but rarely is there changes on new types of investments that you can invest in. So it was just added to the government code in January, and so agencies are just now starting to talk about it. I haven't seen much traction yet in investing in that area.
What is the interest rate currently, do you know?
I actually don't know on that. No, because I haven't looked at it.
I'd be curious with what happened in Greece and what's happening in China right now, whether that popularity or if that still stays on the burner, you know what I mean? If they'll take a harder look at
I would think they would.
I would think they would,
I'd be a little gun shy.
I would be.
Yeah, because those securities are conditionally guaranteed, if you will, by like the World Bank and company and agencies like that. So, yeah, what's going on in the global environment would definitely have an impact on those. I think for us, it's going to be more of a wait and see. Let's just kind of see what happens with those types of securities. Let's see what Newport decides on.
Is Newport looking at it also?
Mr. Mosher mentioned that in his comment. Yes.
If you decided to go ahead and make an investment in that, you wouldn't need our approval.
No.
Because
No,
it's
you've
part of the
already,
policy.
right, you've already authorized that. You said, hey, it's okay that, supranationals aren't there. We are limited to 15% of our portfolio in those. So you've already said that, hey, you can take $3 million and put it here if you want to.
You may want to rethink that.
I don't know. How's your E&O insurance?
What's that?
What's that?
How's your E&O?
Other questions on types of investment before we move into the next topic?
Pretty good.
Next thing I wanted to do was just kind of go through some terminology when we have our quarterly discussions. Many times I will use some of this terminology, and I just want to make sure everybody knows what the things are when I actually do talk about those things. So if I say coupon, that really refers to the interest rate on a given security. There are three ways we can end up buying securities. Those are par, premium, and discount. Par is really the face value of a security. A premium, if we buy something at a premium, we're paying more than the face value for the security. And if we buy something as a discount, we're paying less than the face value for the security.
Do we ever pay a premium?
We have. We more than likely will buy something at a discount than we would at a premium. At the end of the day, and when I'll show you a tool we use shortly, but at the end of the day, the interest rate that we look at is going to be whatever the final interest rate is going to be on that. So if we are buying a security, let's say that in today's market there is federal agencies. We just bought one that's going to settle later this month at 2%. And so that's what the market, let's just say, is running for a 5-year federal agency security. Well, there may be agencies out there that were sold 10 and 15 years ago that still have some remaining useful life, or that still have some remaining maturity on them. But their rate that they carried was when the market was a lot higher. They may be carrying a 5 or 6% interest rate. So I can go get that 5 or 6% interest rate, but I'm going to pay a premium to get that. So I'm going to pay interest up front, if you will, to be able to get that 6% rate. But because I'm paying all that interest up front, at the end of the day, I'm probably still only earning about 2%.
Mark, can you send this to us?
Absolutely.
I mean, they might not need it, but I'd like it.
No, it'd be good for me too.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sure.
thank you.
A bullet, if we use the term bullet, that really means that there's no change at all in the interest rate from this point in time to maturity. A callable agency, this is a type of security that has a feature on it that allows the issuer to be able to take that security back at any point in time. And many times when we buy those, we buy callables, they will specify when they can be called. Maybe they can't be called for 3 months or a year. And then once they reach that first call date, they might be able to be called every quarter thereafter or continuously thereafter. Callables have become much more common in the federal agency environment because it allows them to really hedge their bet a little bit. You know, if the market's moving one way or the other and it goes against where they originally placed that security, they got some ability to be able to call that back. A step-up is a function within a security that we buy to where and these are common in federal agencies as well, where you'll buy an agency at a low interest rate, and every so often that interest rate will go to another level. So for example, we may buy a 5-year security, and the first year we're going to earn 0.5%. And then 1 year down the road, that may step up to 1%, and then step up to 1.5 in 2 years, and 2% in 3 years. Usually when there's these step-up features, there's also calls that come with them. So at that 1 year point, if the federal agency knows the security is going to step up from 0.5% to 1%, they'll look at that, see where the market is. They'll either step that up if the market is favorable in their event, or they'll call it back instead of going up to that higher interest rate. So when we buy step-ups, we'll look at what that first period is, interest rate, where it could get called, same with callables, what it could get called. That's really all we're looking at when we make our determination, yield to call at that point. The purchase date, that's just the date in which we actually purchase an investment. Doesn't mean that's the date we get the investment, doesn't mean that's the date that we pay for the investment. It's the date that we call the broker and say, I want to buy this security. The settlement date is the more important date. This is the date to where we actually pay for the investment. And you'll see in just a little bit differences between purchase dates and settlement dates. But there may be a month lag. The federal agency may be issuing securities today for settlement at the end of September. So we buy it, we call the broker today. We want to buy a $1 million Fannie Mae. All we have to do is make sure that we've got money in our account by that settlement date, because they'll take the money at that point to pay for the security. Custodian. Custodian is really a holder of our securities. We use third-party safekeeping, which is also another term for custodian. And this really ties into the next item, which is delivery versus payment. And so the custodian will, they hold all of our securities for us, and all our securities are in book form. There's no paper out there, everything's electronic. But they hold all our securities for us, and when we make an investment, we will buy a specific security with specific CUSIP number, a specific interest rate, specific maturity dates, and specific features, and all that's communicated to the custodian. And so then when it comes time for the settlement date hits, the custodian will look at that security. It gets delivered into our account, and they'll say, does it meet all these criteria? Was this what we bought? If it is what we bought, then they'll release the funds to the broker. Reality, that happens like that. It's all computer driven. And laddered portfolio, this is something that we're trying to achieve, which is really just distributing our maturity dates over time. So we don't have all of our portfolio maturing in 5 years. Want to try to stagger those maturities. So we always got something maturing. If all the securities are held until maturity, that we always have something maturing over time. Within the investment policy, there are several objectives that are outlined. And there's 5 that are outlined. And first being legality. When we look at making investments, we want to make sure, first of all, that the investment we're going to purchase in is legal. Is it in accordance with your investment policy that you've adopted? And in relation to that, it also looks at the limitations as well at the time of purchase. So if there's a limitation that says only 30% of the portfolio can be invested in something, and we already have 28%, let's say, invested there, and this new security would put us at 32, well, that would not be a legal investment at the time of purchase. It would be outside of what the requirements are for the policy. So we look at the legality of the investment to see what we can invest in. Next thing we look at is safety. How safe is that security? We always want to preserve principal when we're investing funds for in a public environment. Principal is real key. We want to be able to preserve that. Next thing we'll look at is liquidity. Is our cash needs being met? We know that the way our district operates from May through November, we don't have a lot of cash coming in the door. So we know that we want to be pretty liquid during that period of time to be able to meet our current bills that come due. Next thing we look at is diversification. We don't want to have all of our investments into one type. We like to be able to spread those around, spread the risk around as much as we can. And then finally, after we've met all those other things, then we'll go after yield. We'll go after the highest interest rate that we can get. The philosophy in making investments, we evaluate those investments really at the time of purchase. And I talked about being a legal investment at the time that we make an investment, that it's within our parameters of the policy. There may be times because our total portfolio will fluctuate up and down. Total cash goes up and down as we pay bills and we get money in. And so some of our investments might fall out of compliance with your policy because the total portfolio is going down. Every month from May to November, portfolio gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Well, when I bought that security, it might have been when we had a bigger portfolio, and and it fell in compliance with limitations. If it falls out of compliance, and so we only look at that at the time of purchase. If it falls out of compliance during that period, we end up reporting that to you every month. It's a spot in the Treasurer's report that we will highlight anything that might have fallen out of compliance. The government code and your policy do not require you to get rid of that security. It just requires that notification be made. Everybody's on board that we're a little bit out of compliance. It's a temporary thing, and then we keep reporting that until you fall back into compliance.
Question. When you give your reports at the board meetings, do you highlight that to us verbally?
Only if it exists.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. You would do that to let us know if we're out of compliance.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. I think there's a sentence in there that says all the investments are in compliance with the portfolio, just one little sentence. Mm-hmm. If it's not, there'll be a whole paragraph that will be added that will explain the situation and what we may be doing or not doing to address that.
Yeah, as long as you highlight it for us, that's all I need.
I can't remember you ever doing this, so
Yeah,
obviously we're not.
It just happened just a couple months ago, and where it happens most common for you is in the money market funds. We're limited to 10% of the portfolio can be in a money market fund, and idle cash that's sitting at our custodian is considered to be in a money market fund. So if we have if we have three investments that get called, with a portfolio of 20 million, three investments of $1 million each, that's 15% of the portfolio. Now we're above that amount. So now that's just sitting in cash there. I'll highlight it to you, tell you we're out of compliance, but we've made some investments that are going to settle next month, and you'll fall back in compliance. That's about the most common for you.
This is safe to say that if we're out of compliance, it's not, it's okay. We have more money than we thought we were going to have.
Usually, if we're out of compliance, it's because in that case, we're definitely more liquid than we thought we were going to be. Okay. But usually what drops us out of compliance is the total value, the total actual cash has gone down. We're paying a lot of bills. We've got a lot of construction projects going on. Something like that. And then finally, we, through this policy that you've adopted, it's really buy and hold philosophy, which means it's a very passive investment philosophy. We buy a security and we really forget about it until it gets called or until it matures. We're not actively trading the portfolio, meaning that we're not looking in daily and saying, okay, which of these securities can I sell now, and what can I reinvest those in, and trying to creep up the yield. Certainly can do that. There's cost associated with that. There's cost on my time. There's cost on fees on the tradings that end up going that end up happening. More trade you have, a little bit less spread you're going to have on your investment.
Do you review that on an annual basis, just to make sure we're not falling too far behind, or is there?
Well, every month when we put together the treasurer's report, it's reviewed at least monthly. Yeah, every month.
Are there some more aggressive things that you could get into?
Yeah, absolutely. We of what you saw from an allowable investment perspective, there's a couple things that we could do. We could get into the medium-term notes, the corporate area, which will add a little bit of risk to the portfolio, but the rates are going to be better than what you're seeing on the federal agency side. So a 2% federal agency security, we might be able to put place a corporate investment out there at 3%. And so the rate that we might get on a medium-term note is really going to be dependent upon the creditworthiness of that company. A company that has a AAA rating is going to be a lower interest rate. AA rating is going to be a little bit higher. Single A rating is going to be higher interest rate than that. We can't go below a single A rating. We can't invest in junk status.
Do you invest in other organizations such as the sanitary district?
We do not.
You just
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah. The portfolio allows us, the government code allows you to invest in municipal bonds if you wanted to, but it's not in your existing policy.
No, my question was, your company, do you invest for other organizations?
No.
Just
We're
us?
solely focused for you guys.
Okay, sounds good. I thought maybe if you did, you could give us some insight.
I think it's illegal.
Yeah.
Art, I'm surprised.
Yeah, right. Art trying to make money, huh?
As long as it's secure.
Strike that.
From this passive investment policy, I mean, when you're in a fiduciary position of public money, isn't that what we should be doing?
Yeah, we're required to follow the prudent investor rule, which we're supposed to make investments that a prudent person with the same kind of knowledge and everything would make. We shouldn't be out there speculating and doing things like.
It's not our money. It's kind of my philosophy is we're holding the public's money, and we should be trying to make what we can, but at the same time being responsible enough to pay the bills that the public expects us to pay.
Correct.
Got to preserve the principle.
Got to preserve the
Yeah.
principle. That's higher up in your objectives. On safety is your number 2 objective. Yield is your very bottom objective right now.
There's too many government agencies, I think, over the past that have ignored that and have seen the golden apple and reached for it and it fell on their head.
We can't do home loans or anything like that.
Why not?
You can issue commercial paper.
Yeah.
Just like if you wanted to, you could go out there and you could create your own commercial paper program.
Look at
And you
everybody.
could issue these short-term obligations. Other agencies would invest in the Costa
Sure.
Mesa Sanitary District commercial paper program, and you could do that.
RWDs, heavily invested.
Sure.
Wendy,
I was just, I don't know if Mark's done, but I'd like him to address that he changed our custodial company, which saved us a significant amount of money that was coming out of our interest. And then with, a difference between another organization and us, if you're at the city, your payroll is huge, so he would be laddering his portfolio to mature on payroll days and things like that. One of the issues we have is our payroll is growing, but other than the trash bills that we pay monthly, we don't have that really consistent flow where a city may, they'll have capital projects and lots of it going. And one of the things with Mark not being here and Rob being our, engineer, we really don't have a good handle on, and it's pretty impossible, I think, to have it. It is like suddenly Rob could be signing off on a invoice where, the person's getting, a significant amount of money for a project. And we in finance, as a general rule, don't know that until we see the invoice. And so he can't really time, and anticipate when those types of, big bills are going. But he needs to be liquid enough to compensate for those when we have, the stars all align and we get a bunch of projects all going well, and then they stop and we don't pay any bills for a while, and then it kind of comes and goes. So that's, that's something that a city would have, they have more consistent with their projects and their vendors, where ours kind of ebb and flow depending on,
But for capital projects, I mean, it would seem to me that Rob would give you some kind of framework or timeline, when it's expected to, within a month or two, when it's expected to come to fruition.
What we kind of see is what you see on the CIP. That's what I see is when Rob sends over his CIP and he says, this is, we're in development, we're in bid, we're in this. And I generally, just speaking for myself, even though I'm a little newer, I don't really know, how he is. Scott may have a little better handle on how the project is going, but the perfect example is we just got hit with that bill for the city's manholes. That came out of the blue, and you're paying, we could have paid more, thank goodness we didn't have to, but, so there's that, that ebbs and flows for some of our bigger projects. Who would have thought that Irvine, would still be dragging on, that we should have been paid and done with that, a while ago. And then we have the generator at the yard that was a very smooth and consistent project. It's kind of all over the board, and because that's such a significant amount of what we do, that's our flow. But
What happens usually each year at budget time is Wendy will ask total interest earnings that the portfolio may earn for the upcoming year, so she can put the budget together. And so to get a handle on that, I end up having a conversation with Rob. I'll call him and we'll talk about CIP. And I know what would be going in the budget, what would be proposed in the budget, and then we'll talk a little bit about timing, just through conversation, and we'll try to build that into when we put together our modeling, if you will, for investing. So it's a little loose. It's a little clunky because we're all in 3 separate spots.
And I can appreciate how that works, but,
Is our modeling looking good right now for this current year?
Well, I think so.
Compared to other agencies, and back to kind of what Art was talking about, compared to other agencies, are we pretty consistent? I mean, are we following the model that we should be following, and compared to this, like you said, the safety part, how do we fit with all that?
I think that for an agency your size, we are okay. Agencies that have a small portfolio, and I'm going to say yours is small, at $20 million. Agencies that have a small portfolio tend to be a lot more liquid. They tend to take, if Lake's capped at $50 million, I'm just going to put it on Lake, and I'm not going to worry about it. And so they're only going to earn 0.33%. In July, you earned 0.938. So you had 70 basis points above what, if you were 60 basis points above what would be if you just put it into Lake.
Don't you think some of the smaller agencies don't have, and I think having you is a real advantage for us. And I think some of these smaller agencies don't have the investment expertise that we have.
Yeah, I can actually go into an example of that. I've been talking to contacted the Placentia Library District.
Oh, yeah, we met
Jeanette. I've been talking to her, and she was asking me, well, about investments. And I go, well, it's really not my thing. Our treasurer makes all these decisions. She goes, well, you're so lucky because I have to make those decisions. I have no experience in investments, and that's why I refer to you and say, well, maybe talk to Mark and be your treasurer, because that I don't have to do that, and that's the luxury I have. I mean, Mark does all that for me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I just said. I mean, we're lucky to have the expertise and knowledge that you bring us. some of these other agencies don't.
Right.
Well,
Now, but with that said, and you talked about that earlier this morning, and I would like the board to kind of consider that. You know, right now we're earning about 1% on our return. It was about $200,000 on a $20 million investment. I think it's not a bad idea to consider increasing that, maybe to 3%, and that's additional $400,000 in our budget we can possibly earn. And like Mark mentioned, you know, if we go to CalTrust and do some medium notes, but we go to Mark to get us that 3%, but I think it's definitely something we should look into.
How would we get to the 3%? Do you have a plan for that?
Well, I don't think you could get to 3%, not in this environment. The reason is because the way that you've got 6 months out of your year, you've got no cash.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we have to have the burn rate that you're going to have. We need to have about $4 to $5 million of cash come May that's just sitting there, or that's going to mature every single month during that period of time. And so when we have that, to get this to that short term, we wouldn't be able to do it. But if we laddered out maybe in 5 years, and we have a 5-year security that is going to mature in July, August, September, October, November, and just keep doing that, then we might be able to get there. But because you've got that big gap and you don't have an equal revenue stream, it's going to be a little bit harder.
It would make sense for us to do some kind of trans.
You really don't have a need right now. You
I mean,
certainly
would
you
that,
probably could.
would that enable us to get that higher rate? I mean, if we were able to invest that money and not, and borrow what we need in that gap period.
Yeah. You, I'm gonna defer to you on that. Yeah, I know you've done it with the school district.
I mean, the school districts use it
well, in
all the
cities,
time.
we did it,
You know,
but, you know,
I'm not saying let's do it. I'm just saying, is it an option?
There's calculations you have to go through to see if you qualify to be able to meet the requirements to issue a trans so that it stays tax exempt to the investor.
Okay.
And if you've got a lot of excess cash that may be sitting there, you might have a hard time meeting those qualifications. We have not looked at it.
Thought it might be an option.
3% is not likely. What is likely? What if we want to increase it more than 1%? What do you think we can get to?
Oh, I think that we could get to 1.5 easy. Well, that's 1.5. That's gonna be another, $1 million. I'm sorry, $100,000. So, but 100,000, 100,000.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll check with it.
Well, as long as you're not assuming too much risk.
As long as we're not assuming too much risk, that's correct.
And it get back to the safety.
well, and I think that's the way to structure it is he's always trying to, achieve the best rate without setting a specific goal. Because once you say that, then you reorder your priorities to say that yield is no longer on the bottom.
Yield
It's now
moves
moved
way
way
up.
up.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to do that. And it's, like,
No, we gotta
I
hedge
did
our
the
bet
investments
at the
here
best.
and did them at cities and stuff. So with Mark, it's his sole focus during that time, whereas when you have staff doing it, it's usually, it's probably the most important thing you do during the day, but it's the least amount of time you can allocate to that because you're always so stretched. But anytime you encourage them to, set a specific goal, then you're, like you can say, well, I encourage you to go into the CalTrust because that looks like it's a good investment, and he'll weigh that and do it. But, for that 100,000 you may get, it may take him more time and it may cost us more fees. Like with a tran, there's also not just the availability of getting the cash, but the cost of it as well.
No, I know
So
that,
sometimes it's just not.
You'd have to calculate what,
Yeah.
yay or nay,
And with staff, with a small staff, then, you kind of weigh those options and it may not end up being worth it.
Yeah, but if we're chasing yield and that's not gonna get us where we need to be, then forget it,
Yeah, I like that list you did in yield being at the bottom. Now, just like the general manager survey, there was differences from board members. The general manager may want yield higher up on the list. But it's kind of back to that survey we talked about last time.
We are at the 1 hour mark. I still have a handful more slides. I want to show you a tool we use. Is everybody still okay on time?
Yeah.
Okay.
My bladder's getting
Yeah,
close.
me too.
Do you want to take a?
No, no,
couple
no,
minutes?
I can, we can wait.
Another hour?
No,
No.
In actually placing investments, I mentioned before we have to use a dealer to be able to do this, and there's two types of dealers that are out there. One's referred to as a primary dealer, and the others are really referred to as regional broker dealers. A primary dealer is a broker dealer that the federal government goes directly to sell the securities, and so these are going to be your very large organizations. A regional broker dealer is one that will only offer securities on the secondary market after it's already been placed with the primary. For example, Merrill Lynch is a primary dealer. Merrill Lynch will structure a deal for the Fannie Mae to sell bonds. They'll get the deal. And then once they get that deal, then it will be opened up to all the regional brokers to be able to sell those bonds. So we have to use a broker-dealer. We cannot buy investments directly. Right now, the portfolio, I keep saying that, the policy allows us one broker-dealer for every $5 million of portfolio. And we really put that in the policy several years ago to limit the number of broker-dealers that are calling us that want to do business with the organization. If we have a $20 million portfolio, this allows for up to 4 broker-dealers. Doesn't mean we have to use them, but if we're already working with 4 broker-dealers and then somebody else calls, we can turn them away. The broker-dealer needs to agree to only offer investments that are in accordance with our policy. What we do is at the beginning of the year, after you adopt your investment policy, we shoot that out to the broker-dealers and say, here's what's recently been adopted. Please only offer the investments here, and we usually have them sign something that's sent back to us. And then in using them, we either are very active in calling them. We know we got funds to invest. We'll pick up the phone. We'll call the broker-dealer. It doesn't happen too terribly often. We've got extra funds sitting around. Otherwise, the broker-dealers are regularly communicate with us. We'll get periodic emails from them. Here's what we're offering. Here's what's we're holding right now from an investment standpoint.
So we vary what one we have as a broker-dealer?
Analyze cash flow needs. We kind of talked about that just a little bit ago on how when it comes time to place an investment, we'll look at do we need those funds right away? Where are we sitting at in our dry period? How far out can we go? And then use of eConnect Direct. This is a product, and we're going to go there right now. This is a product that MBS Securities has offered to us, and about a year ago, you authorized us to enter into an agreement with MBS Securities. They have a third-party custodian, Pershing, who holds all of our securities. They're not associated with MBS; they're separate companies, but they're affiliated with them. So when we buy something through MBS, through eConnect Direct, it will get sent over to Pershing. Pershing holds our investment. Bank of America used to be our Bank of New York used to be our third-party custodian before we made this change, and we were paying $6,000 a year in fees to them to hold our securities. Even if we made no transactions, there was going to be a minimum of $1,500 per quarter. If we got very active in trading and they were having to add and take things out, then they would start charging more fees on a monthly basis to us. All those fees went away with when we went to this platform. We got in pretty early on with MBS Securities at eConnect Direct. I get emails from them almost probably a couple times a week now with other California agencies that have added them and are using this product in making investment decisions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of here just for a minute. I'm going to go into that so you can see what it is when it comes time for us to make an investment.
And Mark, how does eConnect make any money? You don't pay any fees.
It's the spread. It's the spread and interest rates. Again, everything is all spread and interest rates. No one's going to pay. The only time you end up paying a fee is if you pay a fee to me, and I'm managing your money. If we split up the portfolio and had companies Wells Fargo and B of A and Chase and whoever help manage your portfolio, you would be paying them fees. Other than that, there's nothing you see that's out of pocket. It's all in the spread and interest rates. Everything is a spread and interest rate. Very, very small.
Yeah.
It usually equates to, at one point in time they talked about a fee that a broker would make on $1 million is $312.50. Is usually what they would end up making. Every $1 million security they sell, a broker's going to make $312.50, and that's all based upon a reduction in that interest rate to get to that $312.50.
That's pretty good. That's pretty.
If I can remember my password.
Wendy, what's his password?
I don't know.
Maybe it's not.
Is it set up by your computer?
Yeah, maybe on my computer.
So many passwords nowadays.
Maybe why I pull this up if you guys want to take a quick, just a couple minute break.
That's good.
I know Bob does. He's looking for cookies.
No, he goes in the woman's
Cookie
room.
man.
No,
Cookie man.
oh, yeah.
You can do it, buddy. You can do it.
Messed up my bag yesterday.
Okay. Okay, so what I wanted to do was just show you that eConnect Direct tool and walk through a couple things that when it's time and we want to make investments, what I'm looking at when I am making some of these decisions. So this is the dashboard for eConnect Direct, and up in the upper left quadrant on open orders, there's $1 million there, and that is a investment that we made last month that settles on the 27th of this month. And so that just tells me that I do have a pending settlement out there. I know that I need to have $1 million cash available come the 27th. Over on the upper right, today's market, they show treasuries. Treasuries from a government perspective is everything that we look at. We base everything really off of treasuries. And so we know we can only go out 5 years at any given point in time. So you can see a 5-year treasury today is trading at 1.45%. And so when I look at investments, that is the safest thing out there, 1.45 for 5 years. And so if I want to earn a little bit, I want to make sure then that when I buy agencies or CDs or something that has just a little bit more risk, that we're being compensated for that additional risk that we're going to take on. The next spot down, the position snapshot, open positions. This is just a total portfolio that we have sitting up there at eConnect, or at Pershing. We have $13.4 million in 27 different securities, investments that are there. Just below that, it says DTC CDs. Those are certificates of deposit, negotiable certificates of deposit. We have 12 of those, and then 15 other securities that make up that $13 million. So this is just a quick dashboard as to a snapshot, really, of the portfolio. Now, when it comes time to buy securities, let's look at just the CD market first. So if I went in and I wanted to invest in a negotiable certificate of deposit, and this is not, the good thing about eConnect Direct is this goes out and checks the marketplace. This is not what MBS Securities is holding. A lot of the brokers that the other brokers that we buy from, when we call up on the phone, they're only going to show us what they're holding. Here I get access to everything that's out there. And so if there's something that I want and I'll execute an order, they will go out and get it for me, make sure they get it so that I can get it in our portfolio. So we have a ability to create search criteria to look for specific CDs. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to do one thing before I left the dashboard. I wanted to show you really quick. We talked about our portfolio and laddering the portfolio. Down here below is a maturity distribution, and this goes by quarter, and I can pictorially see how our portfolio is maturing over time. I can see that in the fourth quarter of 2017 and the first quarter of 2018, I got a lot of investments out there already. I probably don't want to put anything out there in that time frame anymore. I want to try to, by laddering a portfolio, I'd ideally like to be able to fill out some of these gaps that we have, so that we've always got, if everything's held to maturity, we've always got securities that are maturing every single quarter. It also shows me that yellow hashed part down at the bottom. That's the new security that I bought that is going to be settling the end of this week. That shows me where that's at. So even though we don't have it in our portfolio yet, as I make investment decisions, I know that there's other investments I've purchased out there, and when they're going to be filling in our maturity distribution. So we'll look at this and we'll use this, and I can see that in the third quarter of 2018 and the fourth quarter of 2018, which is really the 3-year mark from now, we've got a little bit of a gap there. There's no maturities for a 6-month period of time in the portfolio. And so if I wanted to go out and find something, I'd probably look to fill that gap. So from a CD standpoint, then if I thought, well, I want to go in and fill that gap, then I'm going to filter my securities to look at terms that are, I'm just going to say 1 to 3 years, so I don't get everything there. But we can put in a variety of information here. I can say whether I only want new issues or whether I want securities that have already been issued or CDs that have already been issued that are trading on the secondary market, or if I want both. I can look at the coupon if I want just a fixed coupon interest rate, or if I want something that's going to step up, I can filter on that. Whether it's a bullet, we talked a little bit about bullets, we talked about callables, what kind of structure, and we just put both out there. I want to see everything that's available out there. So what this will do then is, once we say, well, go out and search, I want to find a security in 1 to 3 year time frame, go out and search and show me what is out there. Right now it's looking at our insurance scrub. And so we know that from a CD standpoint, I've got FDIC insurance for the first $250,000. Well, I already have 12 certificates of deposit that we own. And so it's going out there and looking at our portfolio and finding all those banks that we already own securities and adjusting all of the insurance on what may be available. Maybe I only have a $100,000 CD in a given bank. Well, it knows that I have another 150 I can go and still be covered under insurance at that particular institution.
While you're doing that search, you said something a minute ago about our previous custodian. You were only limited to what they had, whereas this is giving you hundreds more options.
That's correct. And it's not custodian, it's the broker-dealer.
Or the broker-dealer.
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Broker-dealer.
When we call directly and work directly with the broker, they're going to sell what's in their portfolio.
Yeah.
That's what they're...
That's what an insurance broker, same thing as an insurance broker.
Exactly. This MBS Securities has gone out and developed this proprietary platform that will go out and look at all those holdings that all the brokers have and the banks have and all the offerings, and in a pretty short order here will spit back out what's available that meets our search criteria.
It certainly gives you more flexibility.
Well, and what happens sometimes when you're talking to a specific broker is they'll tell you something, you go, oh, well, let me check my ladder and see where, oh yeah, that's good. And you call them back, it's gone. Or they couldn't get it for that price. You know, what they quoted you, they couldn't buy it for. So then, where this is instantaneous.
Does your firm actively solicit other accounts that you could perform this service?
We have not. We have not. We do all government work. 95% of the work we do is all government, and of that, probably 90% of that is audit work, financial statement audit, and other types of audits. We do a little bit of consulting work, and that's where this comes into play. It's a growth area that we see for us, but we haven't actively pursued it. So down below, then we get the search criteria come back, and you can see that here is the duration, 1 year, 13 months. So I'm going to scroll down to that 3-year mark where we were going to be looking. And so here is oops, one more. Here is the 3-year certificates of negotiable certificates deposit, and I'm going to look at everything that's out there. So now I can look and see that First Bank PR's Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Probably will want to stay away from that one for the time being.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can go through it.
It's almost hurricane season. Stay away from Puerto Rico.
I can go through and I can look at the individual banks and see what people are offering. Here's the coupon rate that each of these are offering out at. So 1.75% is the largest coupon rate I can get on a 3-year negotiable certificate of deposit. It shows the insurance that's available, and you'll see over here that for Goldman Sachs, it's showing the insurance available is only $50,000, and that's really because we already own some Goldman Sachs investments. So it's scrub that down and say you can't go any more out than $50,000.
Why would it's Ally Bank in Utah?
That's correct.
Why would they have two different lines?
They have, we could go and look at that, but in just looking at it here, there's two different coupons they're offering. They're offering one at 1.75%, one at 1.65%. Two different settlement dates.
Oh, it's the date. Is that the difference?
It could be.
Yeah, but it's just 2 weeks.
It's only a week
Like a
apart.
week
Yeah,
apart,
but some people could be every week or every day.
Yeah.
Some
And
of the treasuries issue, like every Tuesday or.
And it looks at, when these banks decide that they're going to issue these negotiable CDs or allow these investments to be out there, they're looking at their cash flow as well. Maybe they got a lot of cash that's coming available on August 27th, and so they're going to offer a little bit more attractive interest rate to get people to pump that cash in. But let's just look at that one since you brought that up. When we buy negotiable certificates of deposit, we look at the credit worthiness of the bank. So we can, this has a feature where I can go in and click on the bank and it will tell me the details of this particular security. It's 3 years. It's issued on August 27th. The price is at 100, which means it's at par. I'm going to pay the full amount for it. Maturity date is in 3 years down the road. It's going to pay interest every 6 months. And that my first interest payment date is February 27th. I know I'm going to have a little cash coming in that day. And the maximum that they will allow to be invested here is $271,000 in this particular security.
They obviously know what the FDIC guarantee is, so they're going to keep their stuff there, right?
Well, no, not always, because that's above the FDIC limit.
I know, but not enough to startle a lot of. Well, could be.
The bigger banks do. The bigger banks will.
Really?
Question mark. Does eConnect do all this for you?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
nice.
And there's
What a tool.
It's a great tool.
Is it available to individual investors?
No.
You're the only investor.
You're the only one of us that could even
Hasn't
afford it. How safe is it, Mark?
I'll say this one.
You could hire me.
Everybody talks about, even if a hacker got in here, what would they do? Invest for us?
Well, they could make, if they were hacked, they would have access to, or potentially, depending on how the hack was, they could have access to people's portfolio just as if they hacked Bank of New York or any other place that's holding it. Everything is electronic.
They would have to
There's no
set up
paper.
their own account and have money moved. Like a hacker could go in and say the First National Bank of Mike. You know what I mean?
Mikey.
Yeah. Is that possible?
Well, and setting up a bank here, no. Let's just look at this for a second, because once I see, okay, this Ally Bank looks interesting, I'm going to look at the details now of Ally Bank. I can click on and see that they're located in Midvale, Utah. I can see their FDIC number and allow me to go out and take a look at information from them that's out on the FDIC's website for the bank. I have their web address. I could go out there and look at there's also a rating by the IDC, and this bank is rated as superior. Superior, it describes all the ratings, and they'll be all the way from 1 to 300, but it says banks rated superior are simply the best by all measures, in addition to favorable capital ratios, most consistently generate return on equity above the COE. I can look at the financial history of the bank itself. I can see that, okay, as of their most recent call report, their most recent reporting to the FDIC, they had $104 billion in assets. They had $60 billion in deposits and $16 billion in capital. And I can look at their capital ratios here, which are a measure that they get looked at, see that they're high. Return on assets, return on equity. So I have the ability to be able to go in and take a look at the bank and how big they are. Some of these banks that we may look at that we've never even heard of before, like I've never heard of Allied Bank, maybe they are big. It gives me a little bit more comfort to be able to go in and see that this is all the information coming from the FDIC as to what they've actually recorded out there. This is, not just now, but I can look at trends. This is the quarter going all the way back, multiple quarters, all of their reporting, and I can see how the bank has done over time.
So I think basically someone that hacks it has to, create an entity or a
Yeah,
banking
that's what I was
institution
getting
or
at.
a security. Well, if it's a security, you have to have a CUSIP that's issued by the federal government. So that would be difficult, and then they would have to move money. But they couldn't move money like, our agreement with our banking institution says you can only move money from there to Bank of America and nowhere else. So they couldn't transfer it to another banking institution without buying a security.
And there's really no personal information in there that they could use. I mean, it's not an Ashley Madison situation where you could pull stuff out. You know what I mean? I'm amazed. Midvale, where is Midvale, Utah? And they have $104 billion?
$104 billion in assets. Now that's where their headquarters is. Now they could have branches all across the country.
But if you take that times millions of banks, there's a lot of money out there that is available.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Do they ever run D&Bs on banks, or is that, does Dun & Bradstreet even have information on?
I would expect they might on their ability to pay their bills.
But Standards & Poor's and Moody's would do
Yeah.
the same thing that a D&B would do. I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a negotiable CD and how I can look and determine, what I want to buy. If I decide I want to buy something, it's as quick as entering a dollar amount in the amount column, checking buy, hitting send. It goes out and looks to see that it's available, and a few minutes later, I'll get a confirmation back. It says, okay, it's yours.
That's brilliant.
Like 10 years ago, I used to have 3 or 4 brokers, and they would fax me what they had in their portfolio, and you'd be looking and you go, okay, I'm going to go with that one. You call them, oh, we're so sorry, that's sold. And then you start all over again, and you do the same thing.
God, it's amazing.
It is.
That's just a really good
Mark,
tool.
is this like Select Quote for life insurance?
Not familiar with Select Quote for life insurance.
Jeez.
Well, I mean, that's what they do, is they electronically look for...
Select Quote is a broker that you put in your parameters and they find the best deal in life insurance for you. Unlike a captive agent who always gives you the best deal no matter what.
Hey, Mikey Schaefer, right there.
I only want to show you just one other thing within eConnect Direct, because we only use it right now for CDs and for the federal agencies. I just want to show you that really quick because we get into a lot of other things out there on the federal agencies so you can see when we make decisions. So here at the top on looking to make investments in agencies, we have the various agencies that we currently invest in. Home loans, Freddie Mac, the Farm Credit. I'm going to uncheck Tennessee Valley
I
Authority.
was going to say, why are we in the Tennessee Valley Authority?
They're a quasi-federal agency,
Yeah.
and people do invest in them. We don't. Fannie Mae and other I'm going to check. The other is going to be the Supernationals. Could be Sallie Mae might come in there, but we don't invest in Sallie Mae's. So here, coupons, stepped coupons, fixed, bullet, callable, all the call frequencies. And I'm just going to set a term of 1 to 5 years, just everything that is out there that we could invest in. And so then it will come back and identify for us then everything that is out. Right now it's sorting by settlement date. And so this is things that are actually settling tomorrow. A handful of stuff that settles tomorrow that if I wanted to invest in, those funds would need to be available. The issuer, there's one of those super nationals right there. The issuers, there's farm credits, federal home loan. These little items here tell me that this is the NI, this is a brand new issue and it's a callable issue. But even though it's a brand new issue, it settles tomorrow. It was probably announced some time ago. You can see already that, you can see already that it is trading at above par. It's trading at a premium. It's got call protection of 12 months, meaning I know that this security is going to, it's a 4-year security, it's going to earn 1.67%. It's callable, but the first call I'm protected for 12 months. Then it does some calculations for us. If this security gets held until maturity, doesn't get called, we'll earn 1.585%. Yield to call. If it gets called on that particular in 12 months, I'm only going to earn 1.337, and yield to W, yield to worst. That's the worst rate I'm going to earn on that. If it gets called, then it's going to be 1.337. The size of the issue was $11 million. It's not a very big issue. That $11 million available. So I can go through here and I can adjust anything that we wanted to see. If we wanted to see coupons, the highest security out there right now, I can get a home loan that has 1.7 years left on it. It's paying 5.625% is the coupon on it. We talked about higher rates. But the price, I'm going to pay $108 for that. So I'm going to pay $1,008,000 to get $1 million back on maturity. And so that extra $8,000 gets reduced out of the interest we're going to earn. And so you can see here, the yield, the coupon is going to pay 5.6%. The yield I'm going to get on that at maturity is only 0.675%, because we're paying all that interest up front to say, just so we can say we've got a 5% security in our portfolio.
Bob's house is on the market. $5 million.
I'm going to research again so I can get the codings back up because they had dropped out. Here's a Freddie Mac that is a step-up. It has an S, so this is a step-up security. And so I can go in and look, and the interest rate that's starting is 0.75%. But they will tell us, well, here's the step schedule. And this is a callable security as well. So every time I hit one of these dates, it will step up to the new rate, or it could get called. So I can see that if it never gets called at the end, the last year or the last 6 months, I would earn 2.5% on this security. But in reality, it's probably going to get called somewhere before then, depending upon what's going on in the market. So that's eConnect Direct. It's a great tool. It really helps out and allows us to be able to make some investment decisions with a lot of knowledge behind it.
Okay. We have a couple of guys that telling me they need to go. Do you want to wrap?
Yep. Very quick. Current environment. I have 2 slides. Current environment. We all know what happened to the Dow. It dropped 531 on Friday. It dropped another 588 on Monday. But the interesting thing on that is just minutes after it opened, it was down over 1,000. Yeah. Pretty unprecedented. Since May 19th, it's dropped 16.2%. Everything the market is all based upon fears in China right now. Oil's down to $39 a barrel. The Treasury has dropped to a low of below a 10-year Treasury has dropped to below 2%. But even given all that bad news, if we look back at 2008, the market's still up 200% from where it was in 2008. And all this stuff that's happened in the last couple of days, there's been talk now that Fed was going to be maybe potentially hiking rates the next time that they meet. Now maybe they're looking at delaying that until 2016.
Even though oil's down to $39 a barrel, in California, the state legislature is going to take care of that drop by increasing our state gas tax, so
Yeah.
no effect on us.
Yeah, it is amazing. I do a lot of work all around the country. When we go and we get a rental car in other states, and the gas price that we pay, it's just, and the refinery's up the street. You know,
It's pathetic.
We were in the Virgin Islands and it was cheaper gas there.
yeah. Go figure.
I paid $2.11 a gallon in Michigan.
Wow. What all this means to you with those what we just saw on the impact or the current environment? We can't trade in stocks, so all that fluctuation in stocks doesn't have a direct impact, but it has a related impact. We trade in just what's referred to as fixed income securities. A security we buy is going to have a fixed rate for a fixed period of time. And so how our portfolio fluctuates in relation to this is when interest rates goes up, the market value of our portfolio goes down. We have an inverse relationship to that. When rates go down, the market value of our portfolio goes up. And the same is true, we have an inverse relationship to stocks. So when stock prices are rising, the value of our portfolio goes down. When stocks are falling, the value of our portfolio goes up. We're just inverse to the market, fixed income securities on it. And that was it.
Wow. Good presentation.
Yeah,
Well,
that was excellent.
yeah.
It was really,
Really
really
good.
very good.
What a tool, man. That's really something.
Before you leave, I'd like to see some direction from the board. I mean, we've heard from Mark, he's comfortable. I think we can increase our return by 1.5%. Are you okay allowing him to do that?
I love it.
I think that would be a wise thing to do, look at anyway, to present to us.
And we can't invest in anything lower than an A rated.
If we invest in a corporate note, that's correct. That's correct. And so then if, those companies are always getting reviewed periodically, and if they drop below, then below an A, then that means that they fall out of compliance with our portfolio. You get disclosed in your monthly treasurer's report that you've got a security out there that's below. And we would have to make some decisions at that point. Do we just continue to hold? Do we still feel good about the creditworthiness of this company, or do we think we need to go ahead and sell the security?
In the agenda report, there was nothing under the investment report.
You know,
It's up right now. It's up now.
Yeah.
The investment report came in late.
and that was our fault with the software upgrade. We're having issues with the financial statements, and so we couldn't get it out in time. It was.
It got up yesterday. It was up yesterday.
I must have read it before then.
Before we, Mr. Mosher, did you have anything you had put this on
Yeah.
your sheet, so.
I had two comments to make. One is with regard to return rates and whether 1.5% is achievable or not. As I'm sure Wendy and Mark know, this agency, I think, and probably all local agencies publish monthly treasury reports of what their liquid assets are invested in and what return they're getting on them. The one from Newport Beach is easily accessible online, and this is, I think, the latest one. We're talking about like $220 million of money invested, and the highest yield part of that, which is about 167, is the medium-term marketable securities account, of which they have two competing investment firms that try to get the best return they can on both of those. And they are happy currently getting a return of like 0.8 or 0.9%. So that, and you might look at some other agencies to put in perspective whether 1.5% is reasonable when you're investing in compliance with the policy we have in place. And then as to the policy, which I think is the subject of today's meeting as to whether you want to revise it or not, going back to the business about the supranational investments, which as Mark said have only been legal since January. What I was talking about was just a committee discussion. The Newport has not decided whether to make those allowable or not. The staff recommendation was 30% of the portfolio could be in that theoretically, which is the government code new limit for it. But like you, and the staff suggested that in the future they might be a useful alternative to investing in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which sometime in the distant future might fade out and not be an opportunity, and this would be a replacement for that. But the committee, like you, I think, thought it sounded a little exotic, and I think they trimmed down to 30%. I don't know what the city council will decide. or whether the city will ever invest in them. But the real comment I wanted to make was just a technical one, as I sometimes do. Looking at the investment policy, a year ago you added this thing called CalTrust to the list of allowable investments. This June, you added the supranationals as being a possibility, as being 15% of the portfolio. The technical point I was going to make is they were inadvertently, they're listed under a limit of how much they can be, 15%. They weren't added to the list of allowable investments. So at least until you revise the policy, you have a limit, but they're not an allowable investment. I don't think Mark is rushing off to invest in them at the moment anyway. But if you wanted them to be in the allowable list, it needs a little further revision to do that.
That's good.
Thank you for your comments.
You could put that on this board meeting, or maybe the next board meeting. Scott.
Anything else for Mark or for Wendy or for
Great presentation. That's what we needed.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Really good, Mark.
Very,
Thank
very
you
informative.
for putting that together.
Sure.
Did you do this while you were on vacation, or did you do it after you got back?
He did this after he got back.
How was Aruba?
We went to U.S. Virgin Islands,
I thought you were going to Aruba.
St. John.
You don't want to go to
St. John?
I don't want to go anywhere. I want to go to Palm Springs.
You don't want to go to Angel, okay?
Yeah, I want to go to, no,
I wanna go home.
Yeah, we are adjourned.